Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and there's also a PayPal link in the info box below the video once it's rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Quantum Eraser and Sleeping Warrior. Good to have you both.
Hola.
Hola.
Cheerio.
Cheerio? You off already?
Oh, is that goodbye?
Cheerio is goodbye, yeah. Very British, though. Cheerio.
All right, just let me stick with the old standby. You ready?
Yeah.
What's up?
Good to have you. 90s child. What's up?
Listen,
Right.
Nathan, we need to have an exception to the housekeeping rule today.
Oh, yeah.
Let's just ask one question.
Okay. I'm up for that.
Let's ask the question about how can a pressurized system exist next to a vacuum without a membrane?
Or to put it more concisely, how can you have gas pressure without a container?
Yes.
Yes,
you know
indeed.
that clip that you used in your most recent video? The one where you had the knife and you stabbed the balloon on the sofa?
Yes.
The beginning part. Did you get consent to use that one, Nathan?
Consent to use what one?
The beginning part of that clip.
I don't know what you mean. I've lost you. You have to be a bit more...
The clip I sent you.
Oh, it had his face on it.
You horrible person, you.
Oh, you mean the one that you sent me that had your face on it?
Yes.
Oh, what's wrong with that?
I felt as though I've had my wallet nicked out of my pocket when you did that. It killed me, man.
Did you copyright strike him?
I might do. I might have to.
I thought you were doing me a favour because I had no internet and I had no means of, downloading it and chopping it up. I thought, oh, he's downloaded it, chopped it up, and then put himself in just so he's got credit. I was like, thank you very much, Anthony. That's really gracious of you.
To be honest, I didn't mind you doing it, but I was gobsmacked when I saw you doing it. I was like, what? That's my clip, you little swine.
I honestly thought you'd put it up already, but again, no internet, so I wasn't exactly keeping on top of what was being published. I was using limited access, i.e. going through the studio app. So I thought you'd published it already. I thought that was a video you'd published, or at least were intending to publish very shortly. In other words, once I'd, because it's done, it was a done clip. So I thought by the time I've edited mine, he'll definitely published it, if he hasn't already. So I looked for it after.
What I was going to do, I was going to get a membrane, fill it with a load of air, and then pop it with a knife. Just basically like what you did. That's exactly what I was going to do, add to the end of it. The only reason why I hadn't done that was because I wanted to show Conspiracy Cats that he'd made either an intentional error, a Freudian slip, or he doesn't get it. But he'd made a mistake in his video. It was very, very well produced, and I enjoyed watching it. It was full of banter back and forth, and I enjoyed it. It was funny. But when you get rid of the chaff and you're left with the wheat, there was only really 2 minutes worth of quality response, and in that 2 minutes, he basically made our point for us. And it was really easy to miss at first because I was enjoying the clip. And I noticed No Simon Dan's comment on the video. He says, yeah, man, you totally destroyed him. So he's an utter clueless moron because he doesn't realize that what Conspiracy Cats has actually done is made our point for us. Once you remove that balloon, you cannot have pressure. Yet we live and exist in a world where we have pressure. So how can that be if there's not something within, or if there's not something containing us? We can't have that pressure unless we live in a density gradient, which again is our argument. So which is it? Do we live in a density gradient, our argument, or do we live in a pressurized environment, which must be inside a container? Again, our argument. Which one is it, guys?
Yeah, he train wrecked himself. I
Yeah,
caught
he
it
did.
real quick right on the initial video. I was watching it and I was snickering, and I went on to something else, and I knew you guys would be all over that. And it wasn't 5 minutes later that Nathan come out. I got a little ding, went over there, and as soon as it started going real fast, I said, I know what he's going to do. He's going to slow it down right at that point where he erases the balloon with his finger, and exactly what you guys did. You guys are on it, man.
That was Anthony's
Carry
video.
on.
So that was all Anthony. All credit to Anthony. He did that. That wasn't me at all.
Yeah, I speed it up because that's the bit you don't really need to listen to. It's not the focal point. But I also want to leave it in so that people don't accuse me of cherry picking. Plus, it sounds cool when he's speaking on helium. And ultimately, when you wrap it all together, you can really you can use the pitch to really focus in on the one line, often the one word that you want to emphasize. In this case, it was a sentence. And that one sentence just basically, I don't know whether it's a mistake on his part, whether he wasn't thinking, whether it was the tip of the cap. But either way, he's got it wrong. He actually argues our point for us, but passes it off as his own. So I don't know whether he's doing it intentionally and trolling us, unintentionally doesn't realise the penny's not dropped yet, or some other explanation. But I'm dying to know why he's done it, because he's made a mistake.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if you two are cool with this, I at this point want to draw a rather useful parallel. So we have a situation where Conspiracy Cats, who is a self-confessed teacher, so he's an educator of children, has got it wrong, very wrong, in his assertions, and based on that, we have a parallel situation to the situation George was faced with when he decided to contact Brian Mullen's employer. Now, I want to put a disclaimer in first of all, which is to say this. We are absolutely in no way condoning anybody contacting Conspiracy Cat's employer. If you do, I would disown you. You are a disgusting human being, just like George. Do not lower yourself to George's standard just because we're drawing the parallel. It is not an open invitation to do or sink to the level that George sunk to. I maintain my opinion about George. He's a disgusting human being. I feel physically sick when I talk to him, and anybody who was to do the same to, is it Al? Conspiracy Cats would be labelled the same by me, and hopefully anybody else who is a decent human being. However, it's useful to be able to draw the comparison. Tumbleweed.
Yeah, there's no question about that. I'm glad you said that. Nobody should even, it shouldn't even cross your mind. Don't even play that.
And I didn't realise it was tumbleweed moment because I thought you were going to finish the point off with a nail in the coffin, but I'll do it for you. The thing is, as far as I can work out, what happened with Brian Mullen and George Netanyahu was that George formed the opinion based on whatever the argument was at the time, and I don't know what it was, and I don't really care. But George formed the opinion that Brian was wrong on the internet, took it upon himself to ring the board of engineers or the licensing engineers of boards or whatever it is, the governing body that governs engineers, and basically try and get the guy get his license revoked. Now, whether that's justified or not in anybody's opinion, it is really a cunt's trick, because at the end of the day, the bottom line is that in George's opinion, someone was wrong on the internet, and he wanted to try and ruin the guy's real world life because of it. Now, the reason why we're emphasizing this is because we are of the view that Conspiracy Cats has got this wrong. Now, nowhere in our normal, rational, reasonable mind would we really consider causing the guy any real world harm. But he is wrong on the internet. It's the exact same parallel that George formed when George decided to ring the board of licensing engineers people, or whatever it's called. And we're emphasizing that if George felt that that was credible or justified or whatever. We don't share that view. We just think he's wrong on the internet. And that's as far as it goes. So I'll just reiterate, no one contact anybody about anything, but give the guy some banter. The guy's got it wrong, and he should be realizing that as a physics teacher, he should be realizing that you cannot have a differential without a membrane. Now, you're all going to say, yeah, but we get it with the weather, Riley. Yeah, we get millibars of pressure variance caused by different things, bit of temperature, bit of weather, you name it, whatever. But the millibars, the scale that we're talking here is pounds per square inch. Apparently, we live in 14 pounds per square inch. So we either live in a container, or we have a density gradient, or, well, that's really your two options. There is no ability to have a pressurized environment if we live in an open spheroid pear-shaped thing. It can't happen.
There is one.
Yeah, leave the differential gradient out of it, or pressure gradients. That has nothing to do with the question. That's a follow-on question. First, you must answer how you have gas pressure in an open system. That's the first question. Now, if you can answer that question coherently, then the next question becomes, how do you have gas pressure gradients? And I'm going to give it away a little bit, in a closed dynamic system.
I just want to make one small correction. So there was one parallel between this situation with Conspiracy Cats and his incorrect assertions and Brian Mullen's alleged incorrect assertions, and that is that Brian Mullen got it right. George was flat out wrong. Now, it took a very long time for us to drag that out of him, but unequivocally incorrect. He didn't understand the Coriolis effect. He incorrectly asserted that we have the atmosphere attached to the Earth. We do not. That defies the religious zealots' view of the heliocentric bullshit ball Earth. That is not Coriolis as it is asserted. They are separate reference frames, according to any religious believer in heliocentrism. That's the first thing. Secondly, George asserted that the bullet or plane... No, not plane. He said that was something totally different, but that's an aside note. But certainly the bullet or ball create their own reference frame. They do not. They are the object observed in a second reference frame, i.e. the atmosphere. George just didn't understand Coriolis, and based on his misapprehensions and misunderstandings of the Coriolis effect, he put another man's career at risk. Disgusting and incorrect. How you doing, Chris?
Hey, Nathan.
That's it.
So I guess the question then becomes, where do the ballers go from here? They've got to either tell us how we've got it wrong with evidence, not rhetoric, not whiteboards, not diagrams, especially not maths. Where have we got this wrong?
It's not wrong.
Or you've got to admit that you can't have a tyre pressure without a tyre.
It's over. The argument's over right there, man.
Yeah.
But there is a bigger picture to this. The whole point of this. So what's the point? So your layman comes along and goes, so what? You can't have a pressure without a container. So what? Well, the very medium that is described beyond the pressure that we absolutely definitely do have, I'm breathing it in and out right now, is the vacuum of space. Well, if you first must have gas pressure and you must have a container, that ultimately debunks the notion of the medium of space. You can't have a vacuum of space. You can't have a membraneless system with gas pressure. So you ipso facto debunk space by asking a simple question. How can you have gas pressure without a container? Which is in essence the system they describe. Earth with gas pressure, vacuum of space next to it. That's the bullshit religion of sphere Earth. And it's nonsense. That question debunks space. So 2 or 3 debates ago, Arwen was asking me about radar and discussing how he could debunk the mechanisms and mechanics and electronics of radio waves travelling through vacuums. And I was like, just debunk the vacuum. Why bother? Just debunk the whole medium. Easy.
Exactly. That was one of my presentations too. Just debunk the medium, and you don't have to chase all their fairy tales, satellites, anything else, the house of cards comes tumbling down. The whole thing. Exactly. You got it.
So what we're going to do to mark the death of the sphere or the paroid, shapeoid, whatever it's called these days, we're going to make a download form so that you can apply to become a normal human being again. You'll be able to click the link in the description box at the bottom, and if you fill in the form and send it to Nathan Oakley, then we will decide whether you're fit to be a human being again, now that you've realised that you can't have a tyre pressure without a tyre.
Can I just note something that Rumpus has said? Rumpus says it is easy to explain the pressure of the atmosphere, blah, 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 blah. Right. Clearly Rumpus is deaf. There's a lot of hearing problems in Globe Earth at the moment. Demonstrate. That is to show practical examples. Show, meaning visual, not explain with text. Yeah? Reasserting your religious belief, Rumpus, is not a demonstration of gas pressure without a container. Telling me that you've got a gravitational force because Cavendish is not a demonstration. It does not show gas pressure without a container. So your explanations of your religious belief aren't going to work here, Rumpus. Demonstrate. Show. Okay, buddy? Chop, chop.
And let me remind people that maths is not the evidence either, because as I keep telling people, if I've only got 2 ice creams, you can't take 5 off me and leave me with -3. Only in maths can you do that. Maths as the explanation. Let's not have explanation by way of like logic or rhetoric. Let's see some evidence. Let's see some physics evidence that shows that you can have a pressurized system next to a vacuum without a membrane. Now, obviously, that
Rumpus claims the
does not
pictures of
exist.
space. So, if we have gas pressure on Earth and the pictures taken from space were taken in a vacuum, how is it that we have that vacuum of space, Rumpus, when we have gas pressure here on Earth? In order for me to believe that, I would need to see something very specific. I would need to see gas pressure without a container. Okay, dickhead?
You know what would be really cool is to get one of those Weisenheimer flat earthers, right, to document a trip to Lowe's or Home Depot's. I don't know what you guys have over there in England as for home improvement stores, but it would be funny to have them gather the staff, whoever's there. It's usually 5 or 6 people around the main entrance right there. Just gather them around and say, listen, this is what I need. I need pressure. I need some pressurized air, gas pressure and this is the one condition, without a container, and just video the looks on their faces. That would be priceless if somebody would do that. And that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah. A can of compressed air without the can. Not a tire without a tire. Just complete nonsense.
Right.
So let's see Rumpus or Conspiracy Cats go into the local, what is it, B&Q, and ask at B&Q, can I have a container of gas pressure, but without the container? And they'll say, what do you mean? And then you say, well, I want like 40 PSI of compressed gas.
Yeah, compressed air. That's a good one. Yeah, that's what you want.
But I don't want the container.
That's correct.
Can I
what I would like from QuickFit is all the cushioning effects. I'd like all the cushiony effects of compressed gas, but without the inconvenience of a rubber tire around it. So just wrap the compressed gas around my rim and make it stay there without the tire, so I get all those benefits of compressed gas, but without the expensive rubber bit.
I've got a better one.
Yeah.
I've got a better one. Let me think. Go to Shaw, the deodorant manufacturers, and say, I don't want to buy the actual container. Have a couple of tins that's not tins of deodorant, please. And they'll say, what do you mean?
They'll give you a roll on. They'll give you a roll on. Problem solved.
Yeah, they'll give you a roll on.
Hey, so what's it called over there in England? The home improvement stores? Is it B&Q, Bravo, Quebec?
Correct.
Yeah, B&Q. you, but I always call it broke and quick because every time I go there, I end up spending way more money than what I should do for what I'm buying.
Buddy.
Dead expensive. Anyway, so the bottom line is this: if you really think that you can have a pressure environment next to a vacuum membrane, then you are literally stupid.
Yeah, and that is in essence belief
Anybody
in
disagree?
space. Belief in an Earth that is spherical with gas pressure attached. That bit, the gas pressure bit, that bit's definitely true. We definitely have gas pressure. The spherical Earth bit, no, we definitely don't have that. And the vacuum of space bit, no, we definitely don't have that because of the gas pressure that we're breathing.
So which is it? Is it a density gradient that we live in? Because it's one or the other. There are arguments. So take your poison.
It's not one or the other though. You first must have gas pressure
Pick your
in order
poison.
to have a gas pressure gradient. So the first thing you must explain is how you get the gas pressure, because you need a container, regardless of whether or not the different densities of gas have separated into their constituent densities. That doesn't change the fact that you must have a container to have gas pressure. So the density gradient bit is irrelevant. It's like when George was talking about the tornado. So you've got a 2 psi difference between the eye and the outside of the tornado. Right, so we've got 2 psi higher on the outside, 2 psi higher of gas pressure, right? And then 2 psi lower of gas pressure. Hi Tom, how you doing? Oh, got a troll in the back chat. So yeah, so we've got gas pressure for certain then. 2 psi difference between the two is irrelevant. We've definitely got gas pressure. Well, what's the container for that gas pressure?
Either way, though, whichever explanation you come up with, let's see the evidence for it. Not the diagrams, not the maths, not the formulas. Let's see the proof. Let's see the experiment by science that proves that a vacuum can exist next to a pressurized environment without said membrane.
Hey Jonathan. So Rumpus says what we would need to do to demonstrate it is to put the Earth in a box. Oh really? Let's see you do that then, Rumpus.
No one will ever be able to do it because if they did, it would falsify the second law of thermodynamics. So it's not going to happen. This is the acme of foolishness.
Yep. And I guess they're going to have to explain why entropy doesn't apply.
Yeah.
Hello.
They're going to have to show
Good morning.
a violation of the second law of thermodynamics. So yeah, let's see you violate the second law of thermodynamics, Rumpus. Chop chop. Let's see it. Not describe it. Again, you're struggling with your hearing. Got George problems, it seems. Yeah? Show. You'd seem to be describing it over and over again like a triggered chipmunk.
So Conspiracy Cats couldn't do it, Rumpus. Do you think that you can? Because he got his whiteboard out and started drawing it and even said, no, Nathan, it doesn't mean that there's no container. It just means that we can remove it and then you're left with no pressure.
It's just
But
talking
that's
utter
our
nonsense. Talking total nonsense. Putting the mass of the Earth in a box. That is
Richard?
why it is difficult to reproduce. Really, that just sounds like utter horseshit. No one's asking you to put the mass of the Earth in a box. I can demonstrate it with a balloon. There's gas pressure with a container with a pressure differential. And what do you know? Entropy. All you do is remove the container. So you show me the reverse of that. If that's not true, even though I demonstrated it today with a simple balloon, you're saying that to demonstrate the converse is requiring the entire mass of the Earth being put in a box. Oh, right. We're getting trolled and spammed. Hello, Daniel.
Sorry
you doing?
about that. I just muted the other one. I'll mute myself.
Hey Nathan, I just wanted to personally thank you for stealing all my viewers.
Were you live before I went live?
I think you started and it was like 14, 10, 9, 4. Someone was like, sorry, Nathan started. I was like, yeah, you don't say. It's like the vacuum of Nathan's debate channel. Sucked them all up.
My bad.
It's all good.
Sorry. Oh, he got sniped. What typical. Right, looks like there's going to be a short intermission while I restart this hangout as we've been sniped immediately. At least we got to round out the points, which is always nice. So, like I say, there'll be a short intermission. Misa's not here. Welcome to the show. See if I can summarize some of these, some of the points that we had earlier. I do not contact people's employer just because you feel they have made an incorrect assertion online. That is disgusting behaviour. As demonstrated by George Netanyahu. Also, regardless of all of the flapping that's no doubt going on currently in the chat feed, you cannot defy the laws of entropy. Shout out to SX for the super chat, much obliged. You cannot have a pressurized system next to a vacuum. It's good fun chatting with Nick. Any regular viewers will know who Nick is. He was telling me that the Cavendish is a demonstration of gas pressure being contained without a container. Amazing assertion. The Cavendish, it just seems to do everything. It's just an incredible test. Sorry, quasi-experiment. So yeah, big shout out to Nick. I look forward to your, I've clarified it for him too, visual demonstration showing us gas pressure without a container. Telling us that you find it very difficult because you can't put the mass of the Earth in a box is just a load of word salad. Doesn't mean anything. Stuck the link out to a few people on Skype. Hopefully we'll get a few guests back shortly. I will publish the link once we've got a few guests. Didn't take long for the sniping to start, eh, Anthony?
Yeah, somebody joined and I didn't know whether they were friend or foe or not. And you obviously were watching the chat and not watching who was joining, so I gave them a bit of leeway.
I'd rather risk it. I'm glad you did. You know, it was, what was that? Minute and a half of work. I talked the whole time. There wasn't even any dead air.
Nick has no L. Remember that, guys. He used to have an L, but someone bullied him. I can't remember who it was now, but somebody bullied him about L because he said it stood for Lucifer.
Pete Shea.
Pete Shea bullied him. Pete Shea, he's the most he's going to do is bore you about Aristarchus or the Dodo. But he changed his name because of it. What an absolute wimp. Anyway, so pressurized system next to a non-pressurized system, and you morons believe it.
It's a joke.
It's bad.
Yeah, space is a joke. You know, the amount of space stuff we've covered recently, the distance that we have to the sun has come from an assumption that the Earth is a sphere based on a shadow on a light in the sky, and then sticks in the ground, which has been extrapolated with the presumption that you were on a sphere, and then that measurement to give you a presumed radius of a presumed sphere Earth based on a shadow on a light in the sky. They take that and then translate that presumed radius onto a different light in the sky, Venus, and say that that light in the sky is the same size as the presupposed spherical Earth because of a shadow on a light in the sky. So based on all of that nonsense, they then say that we have a 93 million mile away sun. All of those presuppositions and bullshit assumptions give you the distances that we have today. It's the biggest pile of assumptive horse crap you will ever hear. Also, they assert that where those planets, wandering stars, whatever you want to call them, lights in the sky, are situated is in a vacuum, even though we all breathe gas pressure. And they're travelling from the gas pressure into this vacuum without any problem whatsoever. And the whole planet, again in quotation marks, is perfectly fine. The gas pressure doesn't have the effects of entropy affecting it in the slightest. It doesn't just get sucked off into the atmosphere-free vacuum of space, the much lower pressure system. That doesn't happen. No. Of course not. Because, in R we trust.
They're going to come back with either refraction, gravity, or yeah. They'll find an angle on it, right? And they'll demand that we accept it because the whole body of science tells us this. But we want to see the evidence that it's true.
The
Mathematics,
body of science.
Bunny
Yeah,
and
the whole
Rabbit.
body of science, Nathan.
It's a good
The
name.
whole body of science.
Bunny
Are y'all
Wabbit
still talking
says,
about gas pressure?
he says, so, Nathan Oakley, is the moon between us and the sun? Do you know? My answer, no. What I do know is the assertions about what the sun, moon, and all of the planets are is nonsense. It's based on presupposition that we're on a sphere because of a shadow on a light in the sky. Yeah? And the path that we see the sun move across the sky. Those presuppositions form together with another man's presupposition, or to phrase it like one of our guests pulled out of his arse, that Venus is the same size as the presupposed spherical Earth. And you mix all that together and you get the distance to the sun based on the scale. Amazing. Amazing nonsense. But that's what your religion, if you're a baller, says about the distance to the sun and everything else that goes along with it. It's not measured. It's not proven. It's definitely not science. It's just religion. It's just assumption. It's just presupposing you're on a sphere. That's all it is. Religious zealots with religious beliefs about spherical Earths and vacuum spaces. Nonsense, all of it.
Yeah, and they call it science.
So just to respond to thought and memory, that's say orbital mount work on a flat Earth software, same as it does on a sphere Earth. Doesn't tell you anything because it's controlled by a little computer chip.
Hey, is it Nummy Num in here?
It is. Hey,
Yeah.
Lee.
Hey, cool. Let me take a little sidebar here because Nummy Num could back this up. And then we'll get back to the second law of thermodynamics violation. Do you guys remember a few months ago where the name Walter Bislin came up?
Yeah,
Yes.
he's Soundly's bum boy, isn't he?
Yeah, and it was something to do with taboo conspiracy. But anyway, when that came up and people were talking about it on Skype, I said, let me go. I don't even know what these guys are talking about. Let me go to Taboo Conspiracy's video and see what's going on. So I went over there and I scrolled down. His Walter Bislin was the first comment, right? He just posted it, said 2 minutes ago, right? And so I got into the middle of this right away. So I read his post, and in my usual fashion, I just pummeled this crayon muncher, right? Like by the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He responded with some kind of nonsense, and then I pummeled that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in detail, right? And I'm sitting back here laughing, and I went somewhere else. I came back, and even Nummy Num even posted in that thread, right? So about 2 or 3 hours later, I said, well, what the heck's up with Walter Bislin? I'm not getting any notifications back. He's not answering any of the questions. So I go back, I hit the notification from his previous post. I go back to the video. The whole thread is gone, right? It was his own. Yeah, I knew you'd remember that, Nummy Num. We never talked about it, but I knew you remember that. So because it was the OP, right? He deleted his first post, then all the posts were gone, right? It just took everything.
What was that about again? I don't even remember what the subject was, though.
It was taboo conspiracy. The subject was his science acumen that I started exposing, right?
Yeah.
Because
there was something specific. There was some specific point, but I'm failing to remember what the actual the substance of the
right.
But I remember that incident, just him deleting it. But
because I remembered you in there, and you would know. Well, I never brought it up to you, but I knew you would know, and if I brought it up, you'd remember. But anyway, I forgot all about it. And last night I was bored, and one of Soundly's videos popped up. I don't know what it was, off to the side, recommended. So I pulled it up, and I was reading through the comments. And, Soundly's got his whole charade of butt boys in there. So I started reading the comments, and it just pissed me off. So I started, dragging them around by their short hairs. About 3 different OPs, right? And I get a notification, and it's Walter Bislin. He's posted in one of the threads, right? And I said, hey, crayon muncher, thread deleter. I said, you're in a new OP now. You can't delete the whole thread. Right. And I don't think he remembered me.
Crayon muncher is a new one to me.
I don't think he remembered me. Right. And I started pounding away at his post. This morning I wake up and I get another notification. But it wasn't Walter Bislin, it was somebody else. And somebody else said, there is no Walter Bislin in this thread. Are you crazy? I looked at the thread. He deleted his post. I said, you snat, right? But anyway, he posted in another thread also that I was commenting in. I mean, this guy, this Walter Bislin, he's a joke, right? I just wanted to bring that up. It struck me as funny. And since Nummy Num came in, I knew he'd remember because he had a little short post in there on the initial one on Taboo Conspiracies video. So I knew he'd remember. But go ahead. Sorry to go off topic. We can get back to the second law of thermodynamics violation. Thanks.
Yep, that's true. That's a funny story. So this guy retreats every time somebody responds to him or argues against him. He just deletes everything.
Too funny, man.
Have y'all seen the M. Scott Veach article in Forbes about why doesn't the vacuum of space suck up Earth's atmosphere?
Forbes, he had an article in Forbes magazine.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
it's
like
that-
online.
Hey, that guy you guys are referring to, he might be like part of something, which is why he's
Right.
clearing his data out. He might work for someone.
Oh, Walter.
Let's
I think he's like,
No.
isn't he a professional physicist or something? I'm not sure if don't quote me on that, but I think that he has he's some kind of credentialed.
I was
Are
not.
you-
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when I heard the story. I was like, that sounds like someone just covering their tracks.
He's a physicist?
I'm not
Yep.
sure about that. I thought I could be wrong. I had the impression that maybe he was a professor or something like that, but I could be totally wrong. It's
He's a
just
Hollywood producer.
It's got,
No.
His,
not
his-
Scott
his
Veach.
degree's in computer science. It's in computer science. I remember it because he wrote it down in one of the comment sections, and then you, John, said computer science. Hello.
Yeah, I told him that's not a science.
Hi,
I
Mike.
wrote to his
How you doing,
publisher.
Mike? How you doing?
I wrote to
Hello.
I
Hello.
wrote to Forbes pummeling that article point by point.
Okay, yeah, let's just get Mike to speak. I didn't quite get a word out of him then. Mike, say something.
He's dropped already, so kick him out.
It's me.
Who's got the music in the background?
I know what's going on.
Is it fair to bring up the Bernoulli principle and the discussion on vacuums and pressure?
Yeah.
Nah, we're you ready for that? Right now, I wanted to finish up on Walter Bislin because I think a couple people were getting confused between Bislin and M. Scott Veach. They're two different people. So
Well,
I
hang
know
on.
Beach.
Hang on, let's bring up M. Scott Veach's Forbes entry on, given that it's to do with this specific topic. Let's read through it and let's see what nonsense he's put up, and let's all laugh at it at the relevant moments, because there will be something in there that makes it pseudoscience.
oh, it's a train wreck, man. I told you I wrote to Forbes and pummeled each of his points.
See, Walter Bislin has this website. I just posted it in the side chat there.
Okay.
It has papers on general relativity, structure of physical laws, calculation of pi. Seems like he's into theoretical physics and math. So maybe that's why I had the impression that he might be a professor or something like that, because he's got this blog with extensive writing and essays and things like that on
Hey, Richard. Can you hear us?
physics and maths topics.
Sorry, hold on, Nummy. Hey, Richard. Can you hear us? Wiped out half the panel. God damn.
Right?
Another short interlude, I'm afraid. Second time. I don't know why we're getting pummeled so hard today. Hey ho. Fun. Hey John, can you hear me?
Hey, yeah, I got you.
I'm just going to start a new hangout as well, but nice that you've joined me back
Yeah.
on Skype, because I was there was a lot of dead air.
Yeah, I figured. Heck, I'm gonna R1 him. I'm tired of getting sniped, man.
So yeah, do you want to round out your bit on Walter Bislin?
Yeah, he's a joker, man. I mean, him deleting his posts, deleting whole threads. I mean, come on, give me a break. I just found it funny. So he's a clown, pretender clown, one each. That's it.
Right, I think we're back in business. 30 more seconds and we'll be there. I'll get some links out on Skype again.
Yeah, this is pretty tiresome, dude.
I don't know. This is part of the fun for me.
Yeah, I was going to say it's tired for you, but you kind of enjoy it. So, and it shows just the level that we're at here, doesn't it?
Well, that's all they've got left now is disruption. You know, just bit of disruption, because there's no arguments against, especially this point. You know, the vacuum of space is debunked as far as I'm concerned. You can't have a vacuum of space if we're breathing gas pressure. You know, we're not living in an open system.
Exactly. It's all over from there. I told you that was the first point. I was challenged. Those 2.5 years ago, somebody challenged me, and I knew it. It took less than a second, man. I was a flat earther in less than a second.
That was the converting point for you, gas pressure next to a vacuum.
Oh yeah, that was it.
Hey, Anthony.
That's all it took, man, because the whole charade, the whole house of cards collapses.
Yeah, there's a lot of people freaking out in the chat about it. It's fun. They're all triggered. None of them are presenting gas pressure examples without a container.
Yeah, they can't because it's a second law of thermodynamics violation. It's just that simple.
Right. Hello, Jonathan. Hey, Chris.
Hey.
Is it Chris? Yeah. Hey, Chris.
Hey. Hey.
Hey, whatever happened to Bassano? I remember you were on a bunch of things with him.
He's just dropped. He'll join the hangout in a second. Oh no, maybe not.
Hello.
So let's take this back to conspiracy cats for a minute, because the moment is that he's obviously had a conversation with Resurrectal Rhetoric, and because he's had this conversation, he feels all butthurt because Nathan uses the mute button, and he's using that as the excuse not to come in and not to watch your video, not to do a response video, because he thinks that you're actually personally attacking him. And I've tried to explain to him that it's not personal. But he said it clearly is personal because he's saying things like bum boy, and I was like, yeah, but that was your phrase. And he was like, yeah, but why is he saying it? I said, because you started it first, mate. It was your line. So bottom line is this: Conspiracy Cats needs to respond, and he can do it any way he wants, but you can do it video. You can join the panel. There's an open link when we don't get sniped. But ultimately, Conspiracy Cats, Nathan's turned this on your head. You've done a response video. In that video, you made a mistake. Now, if for no other reason, you correct your mistake by representing whatever position that you're going to take. But you actually made our point for us. Without that membrane, there is no pressure. So how is it that we have a pressure? We must be inside the container. We must be.
So we've got M. Scott Veitch's article up from Quora. So it may be on the Forbes site, but it's a Quora article because he had me on this because I said the same. He's in Forbes. No, he's not.
Yeah, that was surprising to me. But at the same time, he is a Hollywood TV writer, so he would have the kind of connections that would enable him to maybe be published in a magazine.
Let me interrupt a sec. Sorry, Nummy.
Oh, that's okay.
Tube Tinkerer says, prove the container, Riley. The fact that we have the pressure, ipso facto, in brackets, by that very fact, means there must be a container, and we must be in the container because we have the pressure. So, yeah.
Anthony, don't worry about it. Tinkerbell. I already explained this to him about 25 times. Just let Tinkerbell go off on his little friggin' crayon munching tangent. Let him alone.
Well, the thing is, we can argue what shape it is, be it a dome, be it a cube, be it some other shape. But the fact is, we have a pressure, and that can only exist inside a container. We must in it. And if we're not inside a container, how is it the case that we have the pressure?
Yes, indeed.
What kind of pressure are you talking about?
Gas pressure.
Barometric?
Gas.
Barometric pressure?
No, gas pressure.
Well, gas pressure is measured by barometric pressure, so
Same thing.
yeah. It
And
doesn't
obviously,
matter.
if the Earth was actually spinning, and that would create a centrifuge with said gas, yes, please. And now, if there was a centrifuge of the gas and we were a ball and spinning, guess what would happen to the heaviest gas? It would be flung into space because of that 1,000-mile-an-hour rotation point at the equator. Now, obviously, we have the densest layer of the gas on the surface. It gets less as it gets higher. Oh, gravity. Yeah, that thing that you can't prove again, right? So how are you going to get around this?
In all fairness, what exactly are we looking for when we ask for a definition of gravity, or an explanation at least?
The attractive force that keeps us all to the ground, that affects the tides, that affects everything. The thing that holds us down, apparently, is called gravity. That although they can't distinguish it against density, but they tell us that gravity is really there. Well, they need to show us where the density stops and the gravity begins, because it's not a particularly strong force, but it needs to be strong if it's going to be pulling all the weights of the water, the world's oceans up with regards to the moon.
Have you given any thought to a system that pushes down? Like we're being pushed down from above?
Hitchens' razor applies. If there's no evidence of something pushing down, then there's no evidence of something pushing down. So
But the ground is beneath us. We're related to the ground because our head is up here, so we say the ground is beneath us. But we go wherever the ground goes, so we're technically both upside down and right side up, because we're the ones making those we're the ones indicating that.
Up and down is actually a physical sense that's built into the human body, in the ear, in the inner ear, and the cochlea, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
up and down is
Absolutely.
actually a physical sense, and people can detect their orientation up or down while blindfolded in a moving train. Like it's getting some feedback. But I was going to say, because sometimes you're feeding back there, Hunted. That some people say that up and down don't exist physically, but really what up and down are forms of sensory awareness that are built into the human body, just like touch, smell, sight, and hearing.
But it does always relate to where the Earth is.
Yeah,
we're always going to be like true or correct, or we're going to register as right side up in relation to where the Earth is.
Yeah,
right. Well, that's where
they're relative directions. Up and down, left and right, backwards and forwards are relative directions.
So do you guys think you could perceive motion in space without seeing, like, in other words, start to stop, I guess it would be you in relation to the walls of whatever kind of ship you were in?
Well, your inner ear also works as an accelerometer so that you can detect accelerations.
Well, acceleration, after you start, okay, you get used to it. Once you start to get used to once you stop accelerating and now you have a fixed speed, let's say 17,000 miles per hour, how would they even know without a relationship, without seeing the Earth, if they're even moving?
Well, you're not going to detect it with your inner ear.
Yeah, it's just a strange thing. Like if they have objects, if they have technology in space, how is it even controlled? I'm sure it's
space doesn't exist, man. Vacuum of space doesn't exist. So you're going down a begging a question fallacy, 3 levels, right? So it's like asking, what color shoestrings do invisible 3-toed gnomes have? Follow?
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the approach I take when it comes to the sphere. I don't allow for anything really spherical related, because none of it is self-evident. Like none of it affects us in a way where it's that way because there's no other way it could be. It's all just information. keep them primed. You know,
Yeah,
whatever
ultimately,
information gets their
if you're talking with the average Joe, you may need to entertain some of their fantasies just to get your foot in the door of addressing their sense of what the reality is, right? Like sometimes
Yeah. I find
you have to bring people down by degrees. You can't just necessarily always go right for the jugular when it comes to trying to persuade somebody about the facts of the matter and with regards to the shape of the earth. So it's good to know all these details on all the different stratifications of the, you know, arguments that are built on various kinds of presuppositional delusions.
right. When it comes to debate, I think a lot of them feel entitled because their information is being considered for the sake of the debate. Because I tell people, prove me the ball, and then I'll have a debate whether or not it is that or not. You know, like show me what this spherical thing, because I'll show you what I see. That's right out there.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
absolutely they do. And I mean, I think we all know what that feels like. I mean, assuming that you were that you believed in the globe at some point in your life, right? So you got to try to it's easy to forget, but you got to try to put yourself back in that place when you're addressing somebody who's in that place. And then imagine, you know, what would be the best way to walk someone through this labyrinth, which mostly has to do with just identifying fallacies in the various different presuppositional layers, right? Because it's like layers and layers of presuppositions.
Right. Yeah. Science is based on it. Science never worries about reliability either.
Well,
So
people
Nami,
just, you know,
so
there's
Nami,
always this assumption that
hold on
there's
a second, man. What are you saying that this might not be a good approach? Hey, crayon muncher, you believe in this spinning ball religion? You're saying that that's probably not the best way to go about things?
Talking to, I guess. I mean, I think if the person's an aggressive asshole glober who's trolling you on the internet, then that's a good approach. But if you're trying to talk to your uncle at Thanksgiving dinner, you might need to, I mean, well, I'm saying this from experience. I talked to my uncle at Thanksgiving dinner last year, and it kind of worked. Like now we have a sort of we have a slow ongoing conversation where he's actually asking intelligent and inquisitive questions to me once in a while. I can see that he's chewing the cud of the pseudoscience. He's
Nice.
digging
Chewing the cud.
digging himself out of the shit really slowly. You know, people take it at their own pace. It's a lot to take on for people.
How old is he?
He's almost 70.
Yeah, I find people in that age bracket, like my father, they don't care because nothing's at stake for them. It's like, you know, I don't care about this. I don't care. You know, it works. The fantasy works for me, and I got other things to do.
No, my uncle's great. He's a great guy, intelligent guy, and he's open minded about it. And when I brought it up, he didn't laugh in my face and, you know, act like I was crazy or anything. He was like, "Whoa, why do you think that? That's interesting that you think that." You know, he was curious about it. But I'm just saying, I'm not going to be. But then he tried to debate in favor of the globe, but I wasn't going to be like, "Well, you're crayon muncher." You know, it's my uncle, right? And then my more friendly approach to the conversation has paid off in the long run, in the sense that now he's actually actively curious about this, right? Where I think that if I'd been extremely confrontational, it wouldn't have helped him. It wouldn't have helped anybody in terms of advancing the intelligent dialogue and continuing intelligent dialogue.
It's a concept most people don't think about. So the approach I've been using, which has so far been pretty successful because it allows for the people to speak and not me tell them what I believe in. Because once I say I think it's flat, they're obligated to pick a side. So I just ask them, you know, what do you think? How could you prove it to yourself?
Mm-hmm.
How could you? And they kind of stop and take a thought. And typically the answer is I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, they never thought about it. And that to me is when I walk away, because that's just good enough. You know, as long as they're thinking about it, as long as they're questioning, they'll get down. They'll arrive here at some point.
Yeah.
Ironically,
you have to
ironically, save for the crayon muncher routine, guess what I use?
What's that?
Gas pressure without a container.
Yeah, that's a good.
Gets them every time, man. But go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Well, you know,
that's an involved. You know, that might require a little thought. because people don't want to think, and once they see someone's really involved with if they see you trying to convince them of something, and this happened to me at Radio Shack once. I asked them behind the counter, I was like, you guys hear about this flat earth thing? And they both looked at each other and looked at me, and they're like, no, we're not interested. Like, they thought I was going to sell them something. Yeah. I was like, God, that was weird. I walked out of the store. I was like, holy crap. It got really awkward, and they almost closed the store because they were going to close anyway. But
well, it's a cliche, right? The flat earth is a cliche already socially, like as in, the kookiest of the kook conspiracy.
Yeah, I don't say those words.
I don't even want to hear it, kind of thing, right? Like some people, they're not interested. They're like, you're not going to fool me into wasting 1 second of my time, even considering such a thing. That's what's
interesting.
The cliche.
After they admit that, it's interesting what they chime in about after they've made that, because now they're making a public statement, which is saying, don't bring any of that new stuff around me. Okay, I know how it is. And you should know better. So whatever the next topic is, you can really just wind up and wait for them, Yeah. If it's political or taxation.
Been on the internet too much, kind of thing, right? Like they're like, okay, you're lonely and you have too much time on your hands. They'll treat you like that.
Because I think, generally science isn't as conspiratorial as we make it out to be. Because it's not
heliocentric science
conspiratorial than it's made out to be, even by flat earthers. I think I think it's just been controlled from the very start, and that we have to go through literally everything. We have to take the journey of repeating all the fundamental experiments if we're going to really feel like we're stepping on any kind of solid ground. You can't take anything for granted.
But I mean, the change happens when the old people die out. That's what happens in science. They wait for the old ones, the old paradigms to die, and then they inject the new ones in. So the next generation takes it as the norm, and then it moves forward from there. It just does the work itself. Whereas,
it's pretty much just a socially engineered construct that's had its direction given to it by.
When all the Holocaust survivors are gone, there's going to be no one to speak about it first person. That's it. The data's gone. There's records, sure. There's people who have heard that guy and that guy talk about it, but no more firsthand. So when that day comes, which would probably be in the next 10 years, they could, whoever has that agenda would slip in something else, like this happened and this happened. They could really ramp up the story, and there'll be no one there to say otherwise. And I had this old magazine from 1986.
I'm not sure if that's a good comparison, to be honest with you, because anything that
we don't have the generational thing anymore. Most families don't have that elder to keep the kids in check, to keep the kids aware that it wasn't always like this. There was a time where things were different, because otherwise, how are they going to know? Unless grandma told them or grandpa. But then again, I heard that on the internet, so.
Well, we've had general relativity for over 100 years now. That paradigm has been a couple of generations, 2 or 3 generations now that total absurdity, in-your-face absurdity has survived and continues to be adopted and renewed. People are still renewing their vows to.
No one has a problem with it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I don't think we can't just depend on generational change for science to get its act together or improve. It's not simply just an old guard that's holding
pseudoscience to get their act together, not science.
Yeah, okay, sure. Well, I'm talking big science, let's say. The people in the king chair of what's called science, but not real science. Yeah, I agree with you. Cool. But I'm just saying, the ill-conceived paradigm that gets to have science with the big S, right? Gets to have that name that goes by, gets to claim that authority and that position.
With the big P, pseudoscience.
Indeed. And I think with that, I'm going to say first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate. And of course, a massive thank you to all of the debating panel, even the trolls, for making this debate possible. If you hated the show, then you know exactly what to do, but if you like the show, maybe consider sharing it with a friend, or subscribing if you have not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!